Hi guys, what's up? It's Summer. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking all about student teaching. Student teaching just freshly ended for me, so I'm super excited to talk about this experience while everything is still fresh and new. And I'm also going to be sharing with you all what all is in my student teaching binder that I made for myself. I made a checklist of things that I downloaded a template of student teaching checklists because it had like dates and assignments and things that I could easily put in. I will say I do regret now paying for that. I went in and customized it anyway for things that I wanted to make sure I did. My student teaching checklist was first visiting the school and introducing myself to my mentor teacher. So introducing myself to my mentor teacher, I just did a quick email. All right, so first let's discuss how my program went. So for my student teaching program, we were able to place where we wanted to be, what county, obviously within the reasoning of what they will allow us to do, you know, where they would allow us to go. So at first I really wanted to stay at the school that I was at. I was in App State, so I wanted to stay in Boone, but Watauga County is very hard to get booked in. So then I thought maybe if I move back home for student teaching, I'll have like a better experience because I'll be at home. I really, you know, was trying to figure out the finances of like, if I was an RA again, can I be an RA again and still have a housing and all of that stuff. So I had to fill out a form about a semester before saying that I was going to do student teaching. Now I did get pushed behind because of a math class, but it's all good because God's timing. The first thing I did was introduce myself, and I just was like I might can pull up the email. I'll put the email here that I sent, and I was just kind of like, hi, like we got placed together. I'm super happy. I would love for there to be a time for me to like meet you or whatnot. But I had already driven by the school because I really wanted to see where it was at. This was probably in July, and school didn't start until like later on in August. So I wanted to make sure to make an introduction email and just letting her know like what I do. I'm super excited. Obviously my first day when I came there, my teacher introduced me to the school and just like the faculty and kind of gave me a tour. So one of the questions that I knew I wanted to ask her from the very get-go was what was her expectations for me? And if she enjoyed when people took initiative, or she just needs people to like sit back, because I understood that being paired with her, no matter how she is, I'm going to have to adjust to it. I was. But I had internships where I felt like I was kind of taken advantage of, especially since I was not paid. You are not paid during student teaching. So it's very important for me to know this stuff up front. I also really wanted to know what type of curriculum they use. I wanted to be able to research the units and things that they were going to be doing, so that way I could have somewhat of, you know, idea of what's going on. So being that I did student teach in the fall, I came into something brand new. So they had changed their curriculum. They had done a lot of stuff. So it was kind of nice for us to like learn and grow together in a way. So I also was brainstorming ideas of how I wanted to introduce myself to the students. I wanted to make sure to make a loving and just like really caring foundation with my mentor teacher. When I first met her, the first thing that she told me is that I had such a good student teaching experience, and I just want to be able to give the same thing to someone else. Now, I will say it was kind of a weird, awkward situation because I did request her in order to be able to make sure that I was in that school. And I didn't even know her. I just went on the website. I saw that she got nominated for something, and I was like, I'm going to request her because I really want to be at this school. There was also a teacher college, well, a college that's really well known for teaching right across from that school. So I was like, it might be really competitive. So I did do that. So I'll say when it comes to lesson planning, it was not as hard for me because the team collaborated on every single thing they did, and they had a drive previously where they showed every single thing that they would teach, and we were following curriculum, so I knew exactly what to follow. It's really great when a school has curriculum, but I will say a skill that is needed for that, because a lot of times people are just like, okay, you don't have to plan, like it's good. You really have to be able to pick out what's most important for the students to learn, because a lot of the curriculum nowadays, you are actually not able to fully in-depthly teach that. But also, you know, I made my tons of lesson plans. I had to turn in a lot, and also she helped me a lot because she already kind of knew what she was going to be doing. So she was super helpful when it came to that aspect. But I will say, having experience being at a school that doesn't have curriculum versus curriculum, the curriculum is very helpful if you're a first year teacher or like you're just now going into teaching and you're not really sure what's going on. So a part that I had in my student teaching binder is I had schedules and calendars, and this is how my school held me accountable. So from week 1, they told us exactly what we were going to do. So we had like an orientation thing, edTPA, making good choices. We had to read that. We had to update or upload our class schedule for the week. Review guidelines, professional development plan, student teaching professional goal. We had task 1, context for learning to complete, and we had to watch a series of edTPA videos. So every single thing from like week 1 to week 2, we had to have for my program. I don't know if you guys can see. So I kept this in my student teaching binder to really keep me in the loop of what I had to do because really it's called student teaching because you're still a student, literally. And so I was taking my student teaching course while student teaching. So there's like so much other things that you have to do besides like edTPA and all of that if you work in a state or if you live in a state where they do take edTPA. They planned out pretty much everything from date to date on everything that you would have to turn in. So this is packed with like 16 weeks worth of things that I had to do. I also had this because we had meetings and I would be out of school on Fridays because we would have meetings. So we had our seminar, which was where we met we called them supervisors, but they really were the person that were in control of like our assignments and what we were submitting and all of that. So I had first day of teaching, and I actually started a week before my university started because I wanted to start when my kids started. I thought that would be best. Then we had a seminar 2 virtual. We had a regional meeting virtual, regional meeting 2, seminar 3 career fair, regional meeting 3 when edTPA was due, our closing supervisor meeting, last day of student teaching, and then we had commencement ceremonies that were on the list of things that we had to do. So I also had this in my student teaching binder, which was like dates to remember that I barely wrote down. I wrote a lot of these things down in my planner. I also had a spot for universities, forms, and info. And I kind of just had, in this slot, I had my mentor teacher's name, university requirements, things that I needed to get done, which really were within my first 16 weeks of planning. I also kept an instructional block component of how long I was supposed to do everything. Then we had the progression indicates for teaching and students, so how the progression was supposed to go. And that was pretty much it. We had I also got a classroom group seating arrangement. I got a classroom group seating arrangement that I had. I never wrote in it because we moved the kids so much. Formal lesson plans. So I put this down to kind of get an idea of how to write my lesson plans. But for my school, we had to write them very specifically. And then more than anything, I had a section for edTPA, and I also had an edTPA binder because of how hectic edTPA was. So another thing that I feel like worked out really well was me knowing the daily schedule of like, okay, when exactly do we do everything? So that way I know like, okay, when I take over, I'm teaching phonics at this time, I'm teaching this at that time, and my school did have like a date suggestion on when I should be completely taken over. Now my mentor or my supervisor had said I need to take over everything by 5 weeks, and the university said 6 weeks. So that's what I went for, was 6 weeks, because it was a lot of like stress working and also doing student teaching and also doing edTPA. I would say with my program, the first 10 weeks was strictly just the stress of edTPA. It wasn't even teaching in itself. Like making lesson plans is one thing, teaching is another thing, but edTPA was such a huge component that I felt like I never got to fully enjoy student teaching, although it is an uncomfortable thing to do because you're learning, there's too many mistakes, you're trying to get along with this person, like there's a lot of things going on between student teaching, and I was super nervous about it. I was super nervous on if I would actually be able to teach. And I think it's because I was very hyped up by a lot of teachers, except for this one internship that I had. Actually, probably about 2 internships. I had about 2 internships where I did not feel as confident as being a teacher. But the last 2 that I had, I was like super confident. And I thought it was going to go great. And then I got paired with like one of the best mentors ever, and we really like clicked in a sense of like our styles. Like we were very like soft spoken, we were very like considerate, we had very big hearts. Like it was very different. She was never on like a power hungry type of thing, which unfortunately does end up working out with a lot of student teachers and their mentor teachers. So another thing I was worried about was building relationships. I thought it would be very hard to build relationships with students. And I will say there's still that power dynamic of like the students understanding this is my real teacher and you're not, in a way. Like especially at an older age, it just seems like they don't really respect you. And I think it's because there's a certain way that you move when you know what's going on. And not a lot of student teachers like have that. Like I'm not saying that it's not possible to develop, but for me, I felt like it was super easy for the students to see, like, even though we started at the beginning of the year together, I can tell like who's in control and who's not. It's a very uncomfortable thing because it's like, treat it like it's your classroom, but it's not your classroom. Like do this, but don't do all that. Like, because it's still like, it's not, you still have to kind of be considerate of the fact that this is not your class. I would say one of the biggest things is that student teaching can really beat you down, but you really have to be mindful of the fact that what's going to make you a better teacher is getting up every day and trying again. Like, okay, this didn't work. Okay, this was uncomfortable. All right, what are we going to do to fix that? Maybe we can like go through lesson plans and, you know, map out, I'm teaching math. This is what I'm going to say step by step. Go over it so that way when you go over it with the students, it won't be the very first time. Maybe it's as simple as, can you help me with planning this? If you have a mentor teacher that's nice to plan, maybe it's as simple as that. But it's a very uncomfortable, like, I want my own classroom, but like, I have my own classroom, but I don't. Like, I'm expected the responsibilities of an actual teacher, but let's be honest, I'm not the actual teacher. There's just a lot of, it's a super, super uncomfortable thing, but I think it's a really good learning experience. Do I wish student teachers were paid? Of course, because it's very stressful. I actually had a retired teacher tell me one time, I think that people should student teach for a year. And I was just so confused by that because I'm like, ma'am, no offense, but I know teachers that have been teaching for 3 years, 4 years, and they said that they really didn't get into the grasp of teaching until 4 years ago. So making people work for free in education for a year, it's just a lot because you're not going to know too much of what's going on anyways. People have their first year of teaching and it's kind of like completely new because it's not the same as student teaching. It's not the same as having like your handheld or like a backup. There were times where I didn't feel good that my mentor teacher stepped in. Those are the types of things that like I'm not going to be able to experience as a first year teacher. So I would say some point of concerns that I made for my teacher that I really wanted to be noted was I didn't want to have to stay tons after school. I didn't want to have to grade a ton. Like that was something that I really, really want to talk about because I had so many things I had to do after school that I was like, if your expectation of me is to stay after school every single day till like 5 o'clock or do that, I was like, it's not going to be a good comparison. If we have meetings all the time, that's not going to be a good thing. So I was just really like overwhelmed with wanting to know like, what do you expect out of me? Because I had had an internship in 4th grade where I felt like the expectation was my university said we can leave at 3, but the expectations from her was that I need to stay till like 3:30. So everyone else would be left and I'm still there like grading papers. I'm still there organizing stuff for her. I'm there clean. One time she literally told me to clean. When I was in my pre-clinicals, that's something that my professors would always say, oh, always ask them like, what can I do to help? Always. And I'm like, I think it's a little bit concerning that like we're getting paid. We're not getting paid. We're working for free. And you're having us do like additional duties that you could do. I'll say what I did for planning is that I always had in the subjects that we were going to do, if we were going to do science, if we were going to do social studies, like I always map that out with my planner. I use the Callie Danielle planner, which I really, really loved. And I use that a lot. If you've watched my student teaching videos, I use that to map out a lot of things because I knew that although I'm not really like a huge planner, that was something that I was really going to have to do in order to make sure that I was on task for a lot of these deadlines because it is very hard, like student teaching and still kind of being a teacher. I was also undergoing a graduate program for accelerated admissions, but I will say student teaching is such a learning experience, I feel like personally, and I really, really think that there's a lot of things that I wish I really, really think that I made the best experience out of it being really uncomfortable because I feel like student teaching really beat me up. Like every single thing I'd be like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that. Like it would be very, very just being able to make that continuous comparison. And it also made me feel as if like I would second guess so much, but I would second guess so much because I understood that like I didn't have full control of the class. It was like a whole thing. But yeah, so that is pretty much my honest student teaching experience / my student teaching binder. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please don't forget to leave questions down below or let me know how things are going. Thank you so much for watching.